It is so deeply concerning to say that a hateable villain is something that's starting to become something of the past. There are villains out there that are still pure evil, but very few of them now. So it's all just twist villains, misunderstood villains, villains who just turn good for some reason in the end, and villains who just plain suck. There's no more Darth Vaders anymore. A fearful villain that's hard not to hate, and although it's ironic if I bring him up since, he saves Luke in the end, you can't tell me without crossed fingers that you are rooting for him during A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back. What happened to the villains that don't have a redemption? The villain that scares you into believing they're real threats, and of course, the villain that you can't help but hate. Well, I found one to talk about today from my most anticipated movie of the year, Superman. So let's talk about how Superman, not the character but the movie, teaches us how to write a hateable villain. As I mentioned, I'm not talking about the icon that is Superman, I'm referring to his nemesis, Lex Luthor. Now, I'd like to make this clear that when I talk about Lex Luthor, I will strictly be referring to the Lex Luthor found in Superman 2025 and no other interpretations because, although good, they aren't what this video is about. Now, to start off, how can Luthor be hated if he's mostly behind the scenes? Why are people like Ultraman less hateable than him since Ultraman is the one to be a physical match against Superman? Well, it's because you can't have the brawn without the brain in these types of movies. Lex Luthor is the ringmaster for all his human toys. He's constantly telling them how to do their job and making sure every single evil plan he has will get done, even if it means the destruction or expendability of others he knows or doesn't. So Luthor doesn't have skin in the game, but he's basically the guy that gives his workers the skin so they can be in the game for him, or something, yeah. That sounds good. He's letting his followers do the damage for him and making sure that no matter what he does, Superman is the bad guy and that his actions are for the public, not for himself, when obviously it's because he wants more money. Now, something interesting is this movie does not give us any backstory on Luthor. The only thing we know is that he's been studying Superman for years in order to create his own metahumans to defeat him, but we don't know his rise to glory or his villainy. And although someone can call that a flaw with the film, it's actually quite the opposite. We know everything we need to know about Lex Luthor's past just by how he's presented in the movie. And if it wasn't that obvious for you, let me break it down. His wealth came from his business, one that I might add is very successful and that thrives off of war, which had over time made him think that he's the main character in the world. His want for more money from war had made him forget that people die because of him, and because he would do anything to get more money, it shows us that his perception of reality had been destroyed by every dollar he got from his military-grade technology the governments of the world begged him for. We don't know if he necessarily was poor or rich growing up, but we know that the person he used to be prior to his huge empire is dead, and the last thing left is the guy who would kill millions for more money. And overall, that's a piece to why Luthor is so hateable: his money. But his money isn't his only thing, so let's explore our natural reaction to violence that makes us hate someone. Believe it or not, it is a controversial take, but murder, in my opinion, is bad. And I know some of you are going to be complaining in the comments about that hot take I just dropped, but I believe it's bad, in at least most cases. So in Luthor Russian Roulette's a random guy Superman interacted with once throughout the film, I feel the majority of people were pretty upset about that, maybe gave you a negative emotion in your gut. But why do we care about this one random guy we've seen once, even though he reassured Superman that he had no family and that he will sacrifice himself for the good of the world? Simple. In the same way we dislike it when Crypto gets hurt or gets kidnapped or threatened to be put down, we also dislike it when others that don't deserve a horrifying end receive it. Luthor's actions up to this point have told us he disregards humans, and it's easy for us, the audience, to disregard Luthor as a human based on these actions. So when he full-on kills the guy, no middleman, no arms sold to someone who will eventually kill someone, he has no shield for deflecting the blame, and in doing so paints an X over him that really makes you feel horrible for the guy, but more horrible that Luthor might be able to get away with it. So that's another thing we hate him for: his violent nature. Now, I feel there are thousands of different things that I can bring up as a third reason, but a lot of those thousands of different things fall under money or violent nature. So what's one last thing we can analyze that makes Luthor so hateable? Yeah, this is another simple answer. It's because he dislikes Superman. Now, in order for you to truly understand, let me explain Superman's role in this movie besides being the good guy. Superman is a symbol of hope, a symbol that transcends the screen into the audience's mind, making life feel better. The whole point with this version of Superman is to offer a less dark and more optimistic Superman, unlike Zack Snyder's version. We see countless times throughout the film how he ensures the safety of everyone around him and he uses his powers for good. Unlike other heroes who try to minimize damage and completely fail sometimes, like I can't show it because the movie's still in theaters, but he fights this huge monster, and when it's tipping over, he makes sure to catch it so it doesn't take down a huge building that still has people in it. This basically leads to his approach being as pacifistic as possible, and that's why we like him. Here's the thing though, the movie establishes very early on that Superman is really likable, and is one to be rooting for. So when we find out who exactly Lex Luthor is and how he doesn't like Superman, we are forced to take sides, and I'm assuming most, if not all people, took Superman's side. So the third reason why Lex Luthor is a hateable villain is because he dislikes the person we like. Also keep in mind that at the end of the day, Superman 2025 is a comic book movie. And in these movies, for every hero, there will be a villain. Lex Luthor is able to accomplish the goal of being a hateable villain because in the end, when Crypto is full on shaking him like a dog toy, we feel a sense of satisfaction being able to laugh at him, since the consequences of his actions will inevitably come to light and send him to prison. Even though we hate him, it doesn't mean we can't get a good laugh from his expense at the end. Overall, there are a lot of qualities to villains that make them hateable, but it seems to me that when a villain is more inhumane and ruthless, the more we hate them because we're disgusted to call them a human when they don't respect others. I'm also not urging for every villain ever to just be a no-soul, messed up, evil person, because having those misunderstood villains, the twist villains, the villains who turn good in the end, and even the villains who suck conceptually, teach us things along the way, like how Lex Luthor teaches us what happens when a man with so much money, so much power, loses his sense of humanity in order to favor dinero. I'd also like to add really quickly that I know that this movie is being extremely politicized in the news, but after actually witnessing it and not taking the words of just some random people, I can understand where these people are coming from, but honestly, it's not as political as you'd think. And I don't actually believe that Lex Luthor is trying to be a representation of any specific billionaire, but instead its own character that takes inspiration off specific billionaires, that also does its own evil things. But I will admit the whole war aspect of the film felt like it was directly responding to something, but I had an amazing time either way. Overall, to wrap this up, Superman is my second favorite movie of the year, behind Sinners. And no, I wasn't paid by James Gunn to say that because I think this movie is really good, and I wouldn't lie about my enjoyment because it's important to get the right information out there. Just as it's important for you to like, comment, and subscribe because I'm trying to reach 40K subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help with that. To quote one of my friends who wanted to be in this video, in terms of Lex Luthor, he is so insanely amazing at rage baiting, and honestly, I couldn't agree more. With that said, thank you everybody for watching. I'm Enchanted. Bye.